Hi, I'm Zeke with the Eastside Church of Christ in Baytown, Texas, and thanks for joining us for our Eastside Bible reading for the week of October 18th through the 24th, 2020. We've been looking through the book of Jeremiah, and this week we'll look through another book that's widely believed to have been written by Jeremiah. It's the book of Lamentations. Although it doesn't indicate an author, it was probably written by that weeping prophet. It's a mournful cry of sorrow and grief over the fall of Jerusalem that makes a point of emphasizing why God had allowed its destruction. The book is arranged as 5 separate poems, and every one of them, except for chapter 5, is arranged as an acrostic, with each verse or sometimes sets of verses beginning with a consecutive letter of the Hebrew alphabet. Sometimes the grief in those poems is expressed personally by Jeremiah himself, and sometimes the grief is national, depicting Jerusalem's anguish over what had happened. And of course, it aptly depicts the great sorrow that Jeremiah and his fellow Israelites shared over Jerusalem's devastation. Obadiah's short prophecy presents the impending doom of Edom. Edom were descendants of Jacob's brother Esau, for turning against their relative Israel. For the treacherous deeds, God promises in verse 15 that your dealings will return on your own head. In fact, those words are true for every one of us. Jeremiah, meanwhile, in Egypt, continues to warn the people that they should listen to God. Of course, they don't believe him. They don't do what he says. They reaffirm their determination to be just as idolatrous as they want to be. The book then presents a series of judgments against various nations, nearly everyone condemned for their arrogance. Egypt is forewarned about their impending loss to Babylon at that great historic battle of Carchemish in 605 BC, and the section ends with a final promise of judgment against Babylon itself. Just as Babylon was a horde from the north, so will she be overtaken by another people from the north. Chapter 50, verses 40 and 41 through 43 specifically relate that. Chapter 51 of Jeremiah depicts Babylon, once a mighty nation, now in her death throes. She's confused, exhausted, demoralized. She's mighty no more. And thus ends the words of Jeremiah, a sad figure indeed, and aptly named or nicknamed the weeping prophet. As we turn to our New Testament reading this week in 1 Peter, it reminds us that Christ's suffering and death can be an enormous help to our own attitude and determination, especially as Peter says in 1 Peter 4:13, to the degree that you share the sufferings of Christ, he says also share the joy. As a final, or rather in chapter 5, in a final exhortation to elders, Peter then closes the letter with an encouragement to resist the devil. In his second letter, 2 Peter 3, or 2 Peter 1, he begins with the Christian virtues and the need for every Christian to appropriate and then grow them in their own lives. He moves on to chapter 2, to false teachers and the trouble that they can wreak, before reaffirming the purpose of the letter in chapter 3. He reminds that no matter what the false teachers say, Jesus is coming back, and it will be for judgment. And so we better be ready. So there's a lot to look over this week in our Eastside Bible reading. And I hope you take the time to read, to pray, to ponder, and let it motivate you. Thanks for listening. God bless you.